I will take it from where Asmita hinted about, certain aspects of Ayurveda being not so relevant today. So I want to share a few more thoughts before we'll have one more round of discussion. It's about updating Ayurveda. I think Dr. Asmita pointed out that there are many things that are not so socially relevant today. And I like again here to make some sweeping statements because I do want some discussion to happen. So I'm making a sweeping statement. Ayurveda needs to be updated lock, stock and barrel. I mean, we are 300 years behind our textbooks. So, if you look at the tradition, there has been continuous updation. But today in modern times, the updation that has happened in Ayurveda is very superficial, not at a core level. We have been tableting our medicines, we have been packaging it. But at a core level, I think we have missed really to update Ayurveda in a way that is relevant to our social, environment. So even if you look at the canonical text of Ayurveda, we are really way behind. It's high time we had a Samhita which people will not look at that content and say, see what they are talking about. It's out of, the time frame that we are living in. That shouldn't happen. So there is a need for updating Ayurveda. And today our way forward is that we are being pressurized to reinvent ourselves through scientific validation. And such an exercise is definitely needed. I'm not dismissing it. But the methods of modern science may have to be adapted to suit the requirements of Ayurveda. And there's a lot of debate going on here. But in order for Ayurveda to accept modern science in a way that is very appropriate, I think we must re-examine Ayurveda from its knowledge framework also. In fact, I'd like to use two terms from anthropology, the ethic and emic approaches. The insiders and outsiders view. What I believe is that we have the ethic and emic approaches in the process of modernizing Ayurveda. And if we balance two, we'll get a better understanding. So how does the tradition say? We are all talking about how to modernize Ayurveda and make it relevant to our current societal needs. I would call that as modernization. So tradition, Ayurveda itself has, if you look at its whole evolution, it has been a modernizing tradition always. I mean, it has always been updating itself. So I think if we try to find out from within the tradition, what are the principles of this modernization, we will be able to redefine ourselves. I'm going back to what Dr. Kishore, Rajmohan, everybody was telling, that, we have to look at the crisis is within ourselves, our own minds. How do we resolve that crisis? So tradition and modernity are but two sides of the same coin. Any living tradition is continuously modernizing itself. So a vibrant tradition is being modernized, and what is modernized eventually becomes tradition. And there are three steps in this process. This is what we have found out through our research work, that there is a formula for modernization of a tradition. And that is what I want to present here. And I will just explain these three terms, and then we can have another round of discussion. One is parīkṣā. If you want to modernize yourself, the tradition should be willing to undergo what it's defined as parīkṣā. The second is samskarana, or refinement. And the third is yuganurupikarana, or adapting to the needs of the times. So these are a three-step process. And we believe that this process has not really happened in the Ayurvedic tradition from within. We have got stuck in this process. If we do this activity, then Ayurveda can become truly modernized too. So now the concept of parīkṣā, which is very aptly, articulated by Kalidasa in one of his poems, Puranamityeva na sadhu sarvam. Something that just because it is tradition, just because it is Purana, doesn't mean that it is valid or useful. Nachabi kinchit navamitya vidyam. Just because something is new or, modern doesn't mean that it is not acceptable. So what is the way forward? Santa parīkṣya anyatarat bhajande. The people who are, of balanced mind, they examine for what something is worth, and then take a decision. Mudha parapratyaneya buddhi. The others are led by the opinion of others. So this is something I say that if you were to look at this, the entire Ayurvedic tradition is supposed to go through a process of parīkṣā. And we have to do the grahya tyajya process. What is grahya? What is tyajya? This is what Kalidasa is telling, that at every moment in history of the evolution of a tradition, there comes a time where we have to do an open parīkṣā of the system and decide what is grahya and what is tyajya. And without that, you cannot make a system robust and, living and modernized. So I want to also highlight another approach here, which Ādi Śaṅkara says, na vakyasya vastuanvakyanam kriyanvakyanam va pramana karanam. Just because a statement, a scripture is talking about some vastu, object, or an action, doesn't mean that it is valid. Validity doesn't come because it is from a scripture or from an authority. Kim tarhi nishchita phalavad vijñānotpādagatvam vakya pramanya lakshana. Nishchita phalavad vijñānotpādagatvam. Whether that knowledge is able to withstand the test of application. When it is applied, will it give the result? Nishchita phalavad vijñānotpādagatvam. If any statement in the Shastra is to be valid, accepted as valid, only if it can be applied fruitfully to solve a problem. Tad yatra asti tad pramana, yatra nasti tad apramana. So which means that every statement in the Ayurvedic textbooks can be subjected to this investigation. Is it leading to fruitful knowledge or is it not leading to fruitful knowledge? If it is leading to fruitful knowledge, it can be accepted as pramadam. If it is not leading to fruitful knowledge, it can be rejected as apramadam. Now the question is, can we subject Ayurveda through such a process of parīkṣā, which the tradition itself tells us to do? So once the parīkṣā happens, the next step for modernization is samskaran. Vistaredi leshoktam sankšipatyati vistaram. Samskarta kurude tantram puranam cha punarnavam. So we have to do a samskaran after the parīkṣana. After the process of parīkṣā, there is grahya tyajyatum. A lot of things are discarded and only what is valid is accepted. And that valid accepted component of Ayurveda has to be refined. It has to be made more perfect. This is samskarana. Through which Ayurveda, puranam cha punarnavam, that which is old becomes new again. And then we have the third process in modernization called Yuganurupikarana. Yuganurupa sandarbho vibhagena karishyate. So as Acharya says, I have mentioned only the things that are Yuganurupa. The rest of it has been discarded. So then if you go through these three steps, then we come to a position where Ayurveda can be made more relevant. I think this is a most critical thing that has to happen in the field of Ayurveda. And then, we can worry about global recognition, all those other things. First, making Ayurveda capable of, responding to the needs of the time. This can happen only through this internal exercise. So I'd like to stop here and, we can have another round of discussion. Can you voice your thoughts on what we just discussed now? Anybody?
Yes, I think what you are presenting is very much, I resonate your thoughts. Let's be very clear on it. That there has to be examination with the present day context. There has to be validation and then samskar, what to accept, what not to accept. But in between there is a process. It has to be done with a group of vidvanas together. So not only one person, if Asmita Vele tomorrow starts thinking this is what should be done and it is only right and I publish it, It's not going to work like that when it comes to the whole core body of science. So there needs to be group of people. They also should be like, if we go to Charak Vimanstan chapter 3, there are characteristics how the Vidvanas should be identified. So let us create a format for that. Then identify people having the level of understanding and everything, and then we will have to go ahead with samskara, and then yuganurupa karana. So you are, I mean, on this particular, on these three slides, I'm with you, and I agree to what you have put here. One
Thank you.
example I can give you that in Pune, Vaidya Yago Joshiji, he was a wonderful practitioner, and he has written his explanation in our terms Tika of Carakasaṃhitā some 5 years back. Now it is written by him. So in with this particular process, whether he has added all the examples he saw from his practice, he has tried to enrich it, it is in the regional language. So, but the only thing that is lacking in this Tika or translation is it's only his alone. So when we talk about the whole body of knowledge, there need to be more people. Let that be discussed and put as a sar. That is what I feel.
Yeah, I think thank you so much for those comments. Definitely, it has to be a collective effort. And that is what we call as Siddhantas also, that Bahubid Parīkṣa Bahuvidham Parīkṣa Sthapyate Nirnaya. So, yeah. So, yeah, thank you so much for those comments. Now, can we hear from others?
Yes, Ramanoharji. Actually, you have pointed it out very nicely, and the homework was very nice too. The slogas that you have put here is I really liked it because it clearly explained what to be done. That's a beautiful thing. But what is the problem here is that when we talk about modernization, a considerable proportion of Ayurvedic fraternity consider modernization is something different. They are much more skeptical to that, basically, much more critical in a negative sense to that term. Actually, what modernization is something that something is that change which is inevitable to adapt to the present context. That is modernization. It is not something that we are making it it's with so much sophistication and all those things, but it is a very necessary change that we actually need to incorporate the principles and practice of Ayurveda to place it in the present context. So that is the modernization that we required here. It is not that much in the technological side.
Right.
Of course, we need it in the methodological side. That is the major thing. And the steps are, of course, very clear here. But I just want to make the initial step, that's a T0. When we talk about the translational research, we have T1, T2 component is there. But we have another component here, that is the T0 component, in which we have to take the ideas, that's the concepts explained in Ayurveda, and we have to make it much more concrete. Because once the abstract ideas turn into concrete ideas, we can convert that into testable modes. So that is the important step we have to add here. So make the concepts much more concrete, and through an exploration that is necessary. Then the other steps are projected here. So that is the first step. So make the ideas into abstract ideas into concrete ones, and make it into testable mode. So whether it is mechanistic studies, okay, that is fine. Then we can convert into bedside research and community level aspects and all those things. Then that Yuganirupata will naturally come into it. Once we have all these steps very clear, then there is no question about popularization of Ayurveda. I believe that will naturally come into it, that component naturally come into it. But since we don't have that experimental approach here, or that methodological approach here, that means it is not propagating as we are expecting. I think that is the point here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. They are very relevant point. In fact, the next slide is about how our ancient acharyas have all themselves given us a framework for converting ideas into testable, concepts or hypotheses. So we'll come back to that. Now I'd like to hear from others. Dr. Kishore, Dr. Girish, Dr. Rajeshwari, Dr. Supriya.
Hello, sir. I'm sorry, my system just crashed and I lost, communication for last maybe I think for 5 minutes or so. So I missed the last 2 slides, I think. But overall, I agree with the intention of making Ayurveda Yugan Rupa. That I'm there with the sentiment, definitely. Yeah.
Dr. Rajeshwari?
Yes, sir. Actually, I completely agree with you and also Rajmohan sir, what is told regarding the methodology changes and the type of research that we have to perform. And along with that, publication becomes the more important. For that, when we change everything, what I personally suggesting from the beginning of our career is, we should not leave that the component of Ayurveda when it goes to the modernization. So if we are retaining it carefully with all the methodologies as sir was explaining, then we can just go with the adoption of these 3 techniques. So that will be helpful for the community and also to the science.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Supriya, I can see your...
Yeah, actually, like Dr. Kishore, I also missed some part because I was on a call. I could come back when Dr. Rajmohan was speaking. And I like the point which he has made, like we should the first step should be converting the concrete, abstract concept to something concrete, and that will be the start of doing anything further. So T0 step, T0 stage, which he mentioned, I agree with him. Rest, I was not able to hear, so I cannot comment on that part.
Okay, thank you. I think we are going to the next slide is all about what you are talking about, converting what is abstract to something that is concrete. Now I'd like to hear from Dr. Girish also before we move forward. Girish, are you there?
Dr. Ram Manohar?
Yes.
I will come in between, and just like Rajeshwari right now mentioned that whether it is Ayurvedic or not. So the first thing, when we conduct a research, especially on healthy volunteers, when we try to decide what is healthy, then going back to the core concept of Ayurveda, way back in 2013, I proposed a thing that our concept of swasthya is based on doshadhatu mala prasanna prasanna sorry for my atmendriya manaha swastha iti abhidhiyate. That particular shlok we considered, and each factor, how to say that the dosh of this XYZ person is at optimum balance level. Is there a measurement? Can we see whether, because every person is individually, every person is different, but there is a dosha dhatu mala are present, atma is there, indriya is there. So can we create a set of questions by which we would know that this person is swastha in his own kosha? So at that time, when I floated this idea amongst fellow Ayurvedic people as well as my colleagues from other sciences, a senior mentor said to me that this is not necessary. You can just take health. That means suffering from nothing and normal BP and weight and other things. So this is what every Ayurvedic person faces in the field. And when we go back to, I when we go back to our text and we want our methodologies to come in fore, then I talked this in the Florida conference also 2 months back, that we need to develop sets of examinations, how we are going to call this person swastha based on this shlok. This is the measurement scale that we have designed. It is applicable to anybody, everybody. This is different than prakriti, if I can say so.
Yeah.
So this is where I think we need to bring in that Yuganurupa availability of the sadhanas for Vaidyas, as well as which could be later on, could
Thank
be
you.
incorporated in our textbooks. Thank you for
Yeah, I think
letting me.
that's a very relevant point that you mentioned. This is lacking in all areas of Ayurvedic understanding. We have, so I think this is all coming to how to make things that are abstract more concrete, more measurable, more usable.